Hi there, John Wilkinson here and History Made Easier. In this video I'm going to take a look at why Germans were so upset with the Treaty of Versailles. I'm sure it's familiar territory for you, but I'm going to give you, I think, a kind of more humane look at this. Let's take a look at the loss of territory first. Now, what this meant for Germans was that German families were separated from each other. Germans were now living in a foreign country, living as minorities, often hated because they were German. And it meant that Germany was too weak to protect its own people. And that is a basic requirement of government. If a government can't protect its own people, what's it all about? Now let's have a look at the loss of territory in an economic way. It meant a loss of farms, a loss of mines, a loss of factories. That meant a loss of income for the German state. It meant that Germany lost exports. And remember, Germany had reparations to pay. But it also meant it lost the most important resource of any country, its people. And its people are workers, they are consumers, they are taxpayers. So again, a loss of income when it has reparations to pay. But also a state has to find money to pay for healthcare, pensions, which would include war pensions, and you might not value this too much, but education. And this loss of revenue means that Germany can't afford these things. So the loss of territory is a big deal for German people and for their lives. If we look at reparations, this also diverts money from healthcare, education, and other welfare benefits. Let's look at the clauses that deal with the army. This meant that Germany couldn't protect its people in the future. A basic requirement of any government. Germany couldn't prevent invasion from France, and look at 1923. And it couldn't have prevented an invasion from Russia if they had so decided to invade, thinking that they could expand their revolution. Not a wild thing to think about. Also, it had to rely on the League of Nations. By not having an army of its own, really, 100,000 men, it had to rely on the League of Nations, and it wasn't even a member. Also, that army couldn't even prevent civil unrest. Think about the Spartacus uprising, the Kapp Putsch, the Munich Soviet, and the reliance, other than the Kapp Putsch, the reliance that Germany had on the Free Corps, because its army couldn't deal with those examples of civil unrest. These are basic requirements of a government. And here we're looking not just at why Germany or Germans would be so upset with the Treaty of Versailles. We're looking at why Germans were not really in love with the Weimar Republic and Weimar governments. They weren't providing basic requirements of a government. Finally, I think we have the the guilt clause that really caps it all for Germans. The ultimate humiliation, the ultimate injustice of the Treaty of Versailles in their eyes. Now, I want to emphasize here what we expect from our government. We expect our government first and foremost to protect us. To protect us from the bad guys outside other countries. To protect us from the bad guys inside. Criminals, but also civil unrest. We expect our government to provide a strong economy, and through that strong economy to provide welfare support for when we fall on hard times. And this government, this Weimar government, in Germans' eyes, is not doing any of those things. The Treaty of Versailles has taken away their ability to do so. So Germans hate the Treaty of Versailles with a passion, and they do, rightly or wrongly, and I would say wrongly, but rightly or wrongly, they blame their government. And whether they're wrong does not matter to us as historians, because it explains why they didn't do anything to defend that democracy. They didn't think that democracy had defended them. And so I hope this look at the German reaction to the Treaty of Versailles helps us understand that question that might come your way, and why did the Germans respond the way they did? What did the Germans think about the Treaty of Versailles? But I think for those of you who study Weimar as part of your depth study, it helps explain why Weimar was always so weak, why Weimar was simply not respected by Germans. It was certainly not loved by Germans, and it was certainly not felt to be worthy of defending by Germans. And so it enabled the right wing of German politics under Hitler to overthrow Weimar democracy. So I hope that was interesting for you and useful. As always, thank you for listening. Cheers.